It's time for Fort Worth Musical Moments. Join us now as Steve Markward takes a look at the music and the artists who made the city's vibrant musical legacy what it is today.
Well, hey there, it's Brent Adams with Fort Worth Musical Moments, and it's an honor for me to welcome in legendary actor Barry Corbin here as we are at the Cowtown Birthplace of Western Swing Festival in Fort Worth at the legendary National Hall. And Barry, welcome in.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And Barry was an integral part of the documentary The Birth and History of Western Swing, which was produced by Mike Markwart, and we've talked about it a lot over the past year. And we just had another screening. We're just coming out of a screening of that film. And boy, I saw it about a year ago in Barry's hometown, Lubbock, Texas, where it was screened, and they've added a little bit to this film. And we just sat through the screening again. As you see it, what are your impressions of the film?
Oh, it's wonderful. It's an overall documentary of the rise and zenith, and also where we're going with Western Swing now.
Uh-huh.
So it's a great overall taste of it. Most of the people watching this are probably Western Swing fans already, but if you're not, watch this film and you will be.
So, as you were a young man growing up there, you were born in La Mesa, grew up in Lubbock. Who were some of your musical influences, or what were you cognizant of growing up?
Well, I was, we'd listen to, of course, they'd have gospel music on, Chuck Wagon Gang and those people. And a lot of Western Swing, but early on when I was a little kid, we had Tommy Dorsey and Slow Boat to China and that kind of thing. How much is that dog in the window? But we also had Bob Wills, and we had Milton Brown. All these guys that were experiment. They put together different styles with Western music, mm-hmm. with Western guitars, mainly strings. And Bob Wills got to where he got to using horns and everything, harps, all kinds of stuff. And he found that the singer Tommy Duncan. Bob Wills was a singer, but he was not the best singer in the world. He was maybe the best fiddler in the world, but he wasn't the best singer in the world. He recorded a few songs, but mostly it'd have Tommy Duncan, and then later on Leon Roush, and several others. But he was Tommy Duncan was the main one back in the early days, and he could sing anything.
Right.
And of course Bob Wills. San Antonio Rose was his first big hit. He was a regional guy. He'd moved to Oklahoma from Texas because he had a feud with Pappy Leo Daniel, and old Daniel ruined him in Texas. He'd call up and bribe the stations not to play Bob Wills. So he moved to Oklahoma. There's one story about him. This is the way he was. He was invited to play at the Grand Ole Opry one time. And he rolls up with his band and his trailer on the back with all their instruments and things in it. They start unloading. Roy Acuff's out there inviting it, greeting them at the Ryman Auditorium. They start unloading their thing, he said, and unloaded some drums. And Roy Acuff said, "No, we don't have drums on the Opry." Bob Wills said, "Load 'em up, boys. We're going back to Tulsa." So he finally agreed that they could have the drums, but they'd put them behind the curtain so nobody could see them. So that's the way they settled that. You couldn't win an argument with Bob Wills if he was determined. If he wasn't determined, maybe you could, if he didn't care one way or the other.
You grew up fascinated with theater and cinema. How much did music play a part in your life? How much were you listening to it as opposed to the moving pictures?
Well, I grew up in Lubbock, and Buddy Holly was, I guess, about 3 years older than I was, and so I grew up kind of listening to him. And but of course, Elvis was before him, and Carl Perkins and those guys, Johnny Cash. Those guys came along, and that was a new sound. And of course, I loved all the rock and roll stuff that came out, Fats Domino and Chuck Berry. But they were all, all of that was part of Western swing, all blended in. So I didn't. And Bill Haley was really originally a Western swing musician. He did 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock rock. Did that in the Blackboard Jungle. That's the first time I ever heard that. I thought, my gosh, this is great. I thought, man, this sounds great. But he'd started out in, doing Bob Wills kind of stuff. And then Big Bopper, he was a radio announcer. Chantilly lace, oh baby, all that. Then Jerry Lee Lewis comes in, burns up pianos and everything. So it was an exciting time as far as music went. Now, I was trying to get in on it, but I told them earlier I was too lazy to learn how to play the guitar.
So, as you were listening to that music, what was influencing you on the screen?
On the screen, I was fascinated by Marlon Brando and also the Western actors, Wild Bill Elliott. And I wasn't crazy about the singing cowboys, because it always bothered me that they had an orchestra somewhere around in the brush. But I liked Gene Autry, all right. Roy Rogers was a little flashy for my taste. I liked, but I liked old Hoot Gibson, because he never carried a gun. If he needed a gun, he'd just take somebody else's. And James Dean was a big thing, right at that time. And I've watched those movies since, and I don't know how he would have aged. Marlon Brando kind of became a caricature of himself, and I don't know how James Dean would have aged, but he was innovative. I mean, he brought a new kind of a sensibility to the screen.
Did he study with Stella Adler?
Brando did.
Yeah.
I don't know whether Dean did or not. But it was all the method thing was very popular. And Stella Adler went to Russia And when she came back from Russia, she was on the deck of the boat yelling to all the guys from the neighborhood playhouse who were studying the method and studying Stanislavski and all this stuff. And she said, "We got it all wrong."
Was there any one actor that you looked at and said, "Man, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to take my career," or I might see a pathway with that?
Not really. Not really. I started studying acting seriously when I was about, I guess I was in high school or junior high. I started reading some of the books on acting,
Mm-hmm.
books on stage makeup, that kind of thing. And I was interested in playing a variety of characters. A lot of times, until I was about 40, I always played much older than I was. On stage, I had worked in dinner theater with Gloria DeHaven, who was a popular musical comedy star in the movies earlier, and she was turning 60. I think her 60th birthday was coming up, and I was 32 or 3. And we were doing George Washington Slept Here, and I played her uncle. So I had to be older than she was. Of course, she was playing younger than she was. I was playing older than I was. But it was that's the kind of parts I played usually. Old gray-headed guys.
So it set you up well for the future.
Yeah, and but no, I studied all the books on acting I could find, all the books, anything related to that, and I admired a lot of actors. I always liked Gary Cooper. I always wish I looked like him. But and then Glenn Ford did a lot of variety, did a big variety of things. I like people that did a variety of things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Dale Robertson once talking on the Tonight Show, he said there are two different kinds of actors. There's the personality who makes the part fit him, and then there's the actor who makes himself fit the part.
Mm-hmm.
And that's true to an extent, but I think most of it blend the two.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
You feel like you were more the former than the latter, or how would you classify yourself?
I think that's what I've turned out to be.
Uh-huh.
I played a big variety of parts when I was doing stage work. But then when I got into the commercial movie and television business, they don't want me to get too far from me.
Right.
You know, because it confuses the audience.
Right.
Because they market a certain image, you know.
Right.
And I can play a bad guy or a good guy, either one. But I try to make if I'm playing a bad guy, I try to make at least find some comedy in it, or something, you know, some kind of something to kind of leaven it a little bit. And if I'm playing a good guy, I try to find some bad aspect to it, you know. You know, it's all calculated to please the audience.
Right. When you look back over this career of stage and screen, and you think about it, are there any roles that you didn't take that you wish you would have, or conversely, ones that you did take that you wish you wouldn't have?
I don't think so. I don't turn a lot down. I mean, I'm starting to now because I'm getting older and I want to conserve my energy.
Yeah.
But no, I've always just kind of played it by instinct.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't like something, I'll sometimes recommend another actor. Say, it's not right for me, but it'd be good for so and so. You know, this guy. Because I'm not in competition with anybody except myself.
Right. Did you always have the confidence to do what you do?
It's gotten stronger.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're first starting out, you try to do what you think they want you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And gradually, and usually this comes, I don't know, in your 30s or 40s, you start to trust your own instincts, and you convince them that you're the one who's right for the part,
Mm-hmm.
rather than try to do what you think they want you to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do what you think they want you to do, you're going to be imitating somebody else.
Right.
And Ben Johnson used to say, "Well, I ain't the best actor in the world, but I am the best Ben Johnson."
Absolutely.
So that's that was his deal. You know, he was straight down the line personality.
Yeah. As you were starting out and trying to make your way, obviously you had to make a living. Were there other jobs that you did along the way, and how did those shape you?
I was pretty lucky. I didn't have to do a whole lot of other stuff. I did some work when I was doing the Shakespeare Festival in Colorado. I didn't want to stay in the dorm at the college, so I got hired on with a woman who was in the company. She had a ranch right outside town. She had a house that was empty, and so me and one other actor took a job. We'd go mend fences and stuff in the morning, and go rehearse in the afternoon. And well, when we opened all the plays, we didn't have to rehearse anymore, so we just had to be there at night. So we'd work in the morning up until about noon, and then we'd take off, and she let us live there,
Mm-hmm.
just for that work, you know. So that's that was well, that job was just fun, you know. But you know, I'd temporary stuff. I'd do some temporary office work or some temporary uh, manual labor, something like that, if I needed some money. But most of the time I worked enough so I didn't have to.
Think about being an actor, or folks out here, or musicians, and you choose a vocation where you're blessed to be able to do it, you know, well beyond when somebody would retire if they were an
Oh
accountant or
yeah.
worked in an office or any kind of physical labor job. How fortunate do you feel that you chose a career where you can still be doing it today?
Well, somebody asked me when I'm going to retire. And I said, "From what? I've been retired. I haven't worked in 50 years. So I don't have anything to, I mean, my whole life's a vacation."
How did you get all the stereotypes of Hollywood types and the Flash and all that? How do you avoid kind of the trappings of Hollywood and stay true to yourself and true to your craft?
Well, I don't live there.
Yeah.
So I don't have to go out to, you know, auditions all the time. If they want me, they know where I am. And in that sense, I guess I am kind of retired, because I don't actively go look for work. You know, if they want me, they'll call me.
Yeah. Mike was mentioning earlier the new Scorsese picture you're in.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that picture and what was special about working on that project.
Well, you know, you always want to work on a big film, especially something that you know, it's important as this. This is a story that has not been told.
Mm-hmm.
or it's been told, but not enough. It's about the Osage Indians when they started moving tribes into the Indian Territory. The Osage knew that they're going to move them because they were up in Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
And so the chief went down and looked around and found this area around Pawhuska, Oklahoma. And most of it was later on was the Chapman Bernard Ranch.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's a public trust. It's the tall grass prairie. But they went around and looked at all the places in Indian Territory where they might be moved, and they picked the worst one.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't do much with it. It was rocky, and you could, it was good for buffalo and good for that, but not much good for cattle. Probably been good for sheep and goats, maybe. But they found this area and they thought, well, they're not going to run us off this,
mm-hmm.
and they bought it from the government, from the federal government. But they bought it with the understanding they owned it from the surface of the earth to the center of the earth.
Mm.
So there was no question about mineral rights.
Yeah.
So when they discovered oil there, the Osage individually were the richest people in the United States. And a lot of them couldn't read. Some of them couldn't even speak English.
Easy to be taken advantage of.
You know, they had no knowledge of money really, and so the government, and this was a mistake, they put these bankers, lawyers, and respected businessmen in the area as guardians for the Indians. And so they controlled all their money. So if they had a car, they have a white chauffeur, most of them, because most of them didn't drive. And if they had a flat on the car, they'd go to their supervisor or their caretaker, say, I need a new car. So they'd, all right, and they'd go buy 3 cars. They'd go have the flat fixed and send that back to them, They didn't know the difference. Then they'd keep those cars and give them to their relatives or sell them,
Yeah.
And after a while, that wasn't good enough for them because they wanted more. So there was this one guy named William Hale, a rancher, who was, professed to be a big friend of the Osage. There was this woman whose husband had died, so he had his nephew marry this woman.
Mm-hmm.
So he had the head rights for the oil. And then people weren't dying fast enough, so he started poisoning them or shooting them or something, and having people come in and marry their wives. Pretty soon he wasn't happy with that, so he'd just blow their house up with them in it. And I finally caught him. Finally, the FBI broke the case, but it went on for some time. And this guy Hale finally got caught and put in prison. But then he was pardoned and went right back to the Osage area. Went right back there and tried to take up where he left off, but nobody had anything to do with him, of course.
When you think about a story like that, and you're wearing your Bob Wills stuff today, I think about where we are headed into 2024 and what culture looks like. When you take roles, uh, do you think about how important it is for us to preserve the heritage and the history of where we've come from?
We've got to, because where we're headed right now, we are in a dangerous spot in our country. Where we're headed right now is about what we were in about 1858. We've got we're split up into two basically two groups, but there's also feuding groups between them, and there's the majority of the people are out here trying to make a living. They don't have time for all this nonsense, so they don't really know what's happening, and we're this side and this side won't talk. I mean, they just that's why the Congress is deadlocked. The government's deadlocked. We're facing another shutdown, and nobody knows what to do about it. It's because they're not talking. I don't know what to do about it, but if we look at history, you realize that unless they can break this deadlock, there's going to be a war, or there's going to be something that'll settle it.
Right.
And I'd rather see us start talking to each other, settle it that way. Because we're not enemies in this country. Everybody in this country has more in common than they have against each other.
Right.
And unless we figure out how we can act as a people rather than as factions, I don't know, the worse we are.
Right.
And we're not too far from a shooting war here.
Right.
I don't know what to do about it. I wish I did. I wouldn't run for president, that's for sure, because I don't want to have any job where I'm guaranteed to be hated by half the people as soon as I take the job.
Although you're probably the kind of guy we need.
Well, I'm too selfish. I want everybody to like me.
Yeah, unfortunately, those guys don't last long, do they?
No. No, look at poor old Biden. Everybody says he's feeble. Well, he doesn't get around real good, but he doesn't have anybody running against him that's much younger than he is either.
Right.
Now they're talking about Joe Manchin jumping in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lord have mercy.
Now, you came up in a political family. Your father was in the state senate. Is politics something you follow closely?
Yeah, we got a crowd of old people running for president. I ought to jump in there. I'm older than any of them.
Absolutely. Well, we were talking about Western swing earlier. As you kind of matured in your career, I understand you got to know some of the folks who were associated with Bob Wills.
Oh yeah,
Tell us about that.
Johnny Gamble and Leon Rouse. Last time I saw Leon, we were sitting together at this dance all over in Dallas. They were trying to reopen it on the Longhorn or something.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking, and I was sitting there with him, and he just reached over and he said, "Take care of yourself.
Mm.
I've got to go back and take some oxygen now because they've got to sing in a few minutes." care of yourself. And I went back, he went back, took some oxygen. He came out and sang, he did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
But then he went back and he laid down again. I went back and talked to him, and he said, well, partner, this might be our last time together. He said, he reached up and he kissed me on the cheek. He said, I love you, brother. I said, I love you too, Leon. And that is the last time we saw each other.
How close to his passing was that?
I think it's about a month.
It's in 2019 is when that was, right?
I think it's about a month. I think it was his last public performance. And Mickey Gilley did the same. You know, he said, I'm going to go. I saw him at the Stagecoach, his last performance there. We were sitting on the bus. He said, I'm going to go out to Arizona and take another infusion of stem cell. Said, I don't think it'll do any good. I think I'm done. And said, but I've had a good run. So we had a glass of Crown, toasted each other. That's the last I saw him. Johnny Gamble was another one. He got the damned Alzheimer's. And, you know, we were, pretty good friends, you know. We'd talk about movies and stuff, music. And last time I saw him was at Red Steagall's thing there at the Stockyards. And he didn't know who I was. But he did. He kind of knew something. And he was looking at me. I don't know. I don't know. That's what he said. I said, yeah, I don't either, Johnny.
Was he still playing then?
He played that night.
That muscle memory just carried him through, huh?
Yeah. And it was, and he played, you couldn't tell him playing, but he just, I don't know.
Wow. So when you think about those moments and you kind of think about your own mortality and you kind of take inventory of your own career, what is it that you, A, want to be remembered for and B, are most proud of?
Both things are the same, I think. I was at Ben Johnson's funeral up in Pawhuska. And was there with my daughter, and I came out of the tent. They had set up in a tent. Ben's mother was there, and his sister, and all his living relatives. And I came out of the tent with my daughter, and this old cowboy was standing there. He had his hat off, and he had tears. And he said, Barry, who's going to take care of the cowboys now? I said, I don't know, but whoever it is got some big boots to fill. And he said, maybe you'll have to do it. And that shocked me kind of, because I'm not a cowboy. I played cowboy. I said, well, I'll try. And I have tried. That, if we can keep this Western thing alive, we need to keep pushing it. Because that's national identification. That's the identification for America. And if we lose that, we've lost ourselves. And we might as well just give it up. Because we're the hope of the world, still are. The world that we talked about ourselves being in bad shape, the whole world's in bad shape right now.
Right.
We got wars all over the place. We got hate going on between people. And if we can keep this Western ethic going, that's our salvation. That's the salvation of the world. And I'm done preaching now.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right.
I guess one thing I'm curious about, we talk about all the heavy stuff. Just how much fun has this career been for you? I mean, you've done a lot, you've seen a lot. It's afforded you opportunities most people don't get to have.
It's mostly, almost all of it is just fun.
Yeah.
I do this show since we've been on strike. I've been doing this stage show where I open up with that little Shakespeare thing, and then I start telling stories about. And I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. I just start telling stories, and it always works. I told Bobby Carradine, he came to see my show in Tombstone, Arizona. He said, I had to drive here from California because you're not ever going to get close enough to California. So he drove over to Tombstone and saw me. And I said, well, I can't guarantee what the quality's going to be because sometimes it's good, sometimes it's better than good, sometimes I wish I hadn't showed up.
Right.
And he said, well, in the final analysis, it don't make a bit of difference. Yeah. He said, the reason they're coming there is to see you.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I guess that's true. Yeah. And it's kind of flattering and humbling at the same time.
Yeah. You talk about the strike, a big sticking point of that was kind of the future of this and artificial intelligence.
AI,
and we were just talking about the simplicity of life of the Osage.
Yeah.
And you go from that to thinking about where we're headed with AI. I mean, can you even wrap your head around that?
Well, I was listening to this girl, got a PhD in, I don't know, something. She's an actress, was a child actress, Justine Bateman.
Yes, yeah. It was on Family Ties.
Yeah, and she was talking about AI. She said you've got to feed it a lot of information, and then it will produce something, but it's not people. Right. It's a shadow of people. And there's no human emotion involved. So if that's what you want to do, then do it. She says, in my films, I'm not going to have any CGI, which I think is true. They've replaced stuntmen with trick photography. Yeah. And it's exciting because nobody can do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that thing in the Lone Ranger where that guy jumps that horse on the top of that train and runs along a speeding train, jumping from car to car.
Right.
Somebody asked me if I'd like to have that horse. I said, well, I'd like to own him, but I wouldn't like to ride him.
Yeah. Absolutely. When you go through the whole process of making a motion picture, do you ever go back and watch the final version of it, or do you move on to the next?
Yeah, eventually I'll see most of them. Some of them I just don't want to see.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them but I don't see them right away usually.
Yeah. Is it hard to watch it without being your own critic?
No, I don't. By the time I see it, it's well, if I go to the premiere, it's a year old.
Right.
You know, I did it a year ago.
Right.
So I can look at it as a viewer because I've already done two or three
You're at
since
peace. You're
then.
at peace with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of actors can't watch themselves because they say, "Oh, I should have done that different.
Right.
I should have." But no, once you get it on camera, it's frozen.
Yeah.
Or once you get it edited.
Mm-hmm. You have a large body of work, but are there any that you're most proud of, either TV series or movie?
Oh, I think maybe I'm proud of being a part of the Lonesome Dove. I'm proud of being a part of this Killers at the Flower Moon. I haven't seen it yet, but
Mm-hmm.
everybody tells me it's a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I was proud of Northern Exposure for the first 3 seasons. The last 2 seasons they had new producer come in. And it's a long, complicated story, but there was a lawsuit, and Universal lost it, so they just wanted to kill the show.
Yeah.
So they brought this producer in and didn't like the show. He tried to change it. It didn't work.
Yeah. This is neither here nor there, but I got sucked into reading a kind of a Facebook message board the other day. Somebody, you know, as all these tabloid type deals do, brought up a conversation about Leonardo DiCaprio and his approach to improvising lines, and that there was some frustration among Scorsese and De Niro about his approach to improvising. Or were you cognizant of any of that, or how do you feel about that whole approach, or what was your experience there?
And that well, the only scene that I ever saw Scorsese in was in the first scene I did, which was a scene in the funeral parlor there where DiCaprio was trying to keep me from billing his Indian wife too much for her sister's funeral.
Mm.
And he said, I want you to charge her white people prices.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which was a lot less than what they's charging the Indians. And he said, and I also want you to stay out of that casket and don't take any of that jewelry out there. I said, well, nobody will know that. It's going to be a closed casket. You know, and I'm trying to make as much profit as I can, you know.
Right.
But he directed that. He was, you know, we just mainly had small talk.
Yeah.
You know, talking. He was about to turn 80, and he said, "What does it feel like to turn 80?" I said, "Well, you'll know in a couple of months."
Was that the first picture you'd worked with him on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. He mainly just stays by the monitor.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't come out. He tells the assistant director what to tell us.
Who was the most challenging director you ever worked with?
Most challenging?
Yeah.
He was a cinematographer doing the miniseries. It's his first directing job. And I had a scene where I had to shear a sheep. And while I'm shearing this sheep, I've got to do a page and a half monologue talking to these kids. And so I start out, I get the sheep out, and I get his foot behind his head, and I take the first cut, and he says, cut, 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 cut. don't make that face. I said, what? He said, don't make that face. I said, well, this is the face you hired. If you don't like it, you better go hire somebody else. He said, no, just don't make the face you just made. I said, what do you think I do in the morning when I'm shaving? Do you think I do faces so I figure out what to do? He said, well, I don't know what you do. I said, obviously. All right, just tell me to think something else. He said, okay, think something else. Now, camera, action. Oh, okay. Well, I did the same thing again. Pulled the sheep out. Well, every time you start shearing the sheep, you got to get a fresh one and start it. Somebody else got to shear the one you just started.
Yeah.
So this one, he said, he let me get through the scene and got the sheep sheared and shoved him back down the chute. And he said, okay, cut. That was brilliant. That was great. Well, I'd done exactly the same thing I did before. He just wanted to give me a direction.
You only had to shear 2 sheep, though, to get there?
Yeah. That's probably the most challenging direction I ever had. Also, there's some directors that just like to yell at people, and holler at people. And they had one director, William Friedkin, the guy that directed French Connection and what was The Exorcist and all those movies. Well, he yells at people all the time. He's yelling at some crew member, yelling at this person. Goes over and the guy playing the lead in the movie, and he grabs him by his face. And I'm just... and I finally said, Billy, can I talk to you out here in the hall? He said, sure. We went out, and I said, look, I'm a little peculiar, but I just can't stand all this yelling at people. Because I'm not thinking what I'm supposed to think. What I'm thinking about is what I'm going to do to you if you grab me by the face. And he said, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm just not used to people being disrespectful to one another, and it just bothers me so bad I can't remember my lines. Could you not do that when I'm on the set? Please. And so he didn't. He calmed himself down out on the set. I don't know what he did when I wasn't there. But then we went into the looping studio, and I looped almost all my lines, almost all the stuff I said on the set. I said it in the looping, and he was the most polite, friendly guy in the world in the looping studio because he had all the control. He felt like he had to fight people for control on the set, and he must have had the worst case of upset stomach and ulcers and everything else of anybody I know, because I couldn't live like that. But anyhow, that's just differences in people, I guess.
Were there actors or actresses you worked on multiple projects with, or that you just really had a good rapport with that you enjoyed?
Yeah, Sam Elliott, I'm always, and his wife Catherine Ross, I'm on good terms with them all the time. And most people I get along with, Actors are the greatest people in the world if you don't have to spend too much time with them.
It's kind of like musicians.
I don't hang around with actors because they're all neurotic, but I'd rather hang around with plumbers or electricians or something, or cowboys.
It's funny you bring up Sam Elliott, because when I think of the West in cinema today, it's you and him. Are you comfortable with that status?
I am, yeah. Sam is not really, but
Mhm.
Sam is Sam's not the calm guy you think he is. He's always nervous about things, but he's a good man. I like him a lot.
Are there any that you look at to be kind of the torchbearers coming up here, the next generation of Western actors?
I don't know. I'm trying to think if I know anybody that can ride a horse. Ben Johnson told me, you better get some westerns in while you can still ride. I said, what do you mean I'll always? I said, well, now I can ride. I can get up there. I can. Once I get up there, I'm fine. But getting on and off is hard.
Yeah.
I did a photo shoot out at the 4.6s in, I think it was in July. Magazine article just came out in the Fort Worth Weekly, or the Fort Worth Monthly, I guess. Big, it's a nice glossy magazine. And I got on a horse and went out and helped them gather cattle. And it was about 100 degrees at 11 o'clock in the morning. We got the cattle up and we were working them a little bit, and then we had to quit because it got up to about 105, and we decided it's too hard on the horses. It's too hard on me. So I got the biggest, tallest cowboy there, and I said, would you stand right here? I'm going to fall off this horse and you catch me. So that's how I got on.
You feel like you could have done the cowboy life? I mean, you played them a lot. Did you imagine yourself actually having gone through that?
Well,
life?
there was the guy whose horse I rode was Boots O'Neill,
mm-hmm.
and he was once the foreman there at the 4.6s.
Mm-hmm.
He's 91 years old now. He still gets horseback every day and goes out and works a full day. Mm-hmm. And he gets on the horse like a 20-year-old. I got to have 2 or 3 people shove me up there. But that's the thing about doing it. If you do it all the time, then it's nothing. Yeah. Like everything else, you get older, and if you quit doing anything, then you can't do it anymore.
Well, here's hoping you keep acting. Barry, thank you so much for taking the time with us here.
Thank
we really
you.
Appreciate it.
I enjoyed it.
You've been watching Fort Worth Musical Moments, a production of Rural Strong Media and Clarksville Creative Sound, copyright 2023. Please join the Fort Worth Musical Moments Facebook group and join us each Friday at 10 a.m. Central as we introduce you to another key figure in Fort Worth's musical heritage.